Hey YouTubers, and we're back with another Dragon Ball discussion video. This day I have a very special guest. You know her as Amber, but she's actually Canadian gamer girl. Would you say hello, Amber?
Hi guys, how's it going? I'm a little sick, so bear with me.
Alright, so today we're actually going to be talking about something that I approached Amber with in terms of, I thought this would be a really good idea. We have another idea we're probably going to do sometime down the line pretty soon here, maybe in a couple of weeks, but this one's a little bit easier and kind of off the ball, just basically random opinions about certain things. So right now we're going to be talking about actually the very end of Dragon Ball Z. You can talk about Super. We might not talk about Super. We don't know yet. We're going to talk about which character of the main roster of characters in the end of Dragon Ball Z actually had the happiest ending of everyone. And honestly, if you ask me, I actually have to go with Krillin. And the reason I have to go with Krillin is because Krillin, from the moment that we met him early on in the original series of Dragon Ball, he's gotten nothing but shit on. I mean, the guy was ahead of Goku, maybe even a little arguably, for just the shortest amount of time, and then all he was just a footnote to everyone that came after him in terms of, he eventually, he's stronger than Yamcha. There's debates about whether he's stronger than Tenshinhan, and there's also debates about, yada, 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 but he has been important, but he's just gotten his stepped on. Frieza stabbed him, he got wrecked by Nappa, Cell, Boo, he's gotten destroyed by everybody. But at the very end of the day, I mean, the guy, out of everyone else in the series, he wanted 18. He got shit on by almost every other woman, if you want to count the filler arc with Marin and everything. He wanted 18, he got 18. He has a nice family at the end of that arc. He lives with Master Roshi, where he kind of started his journey. He's completed that journey of his. It's kind of a beautiful thing, and honestly, Krillin is my man.
Yeah, for sure. I have to agree with you 100%.
But what about you?
I'm actually going to have to go with Vidal. I do agree with you on Krillin, but I'm going to have to go with Vidal. Mainly because when we first met Vidal, we find out that Mr. Satan, or Mark, if you want to go by, his real name, that's his daughter. She's his father, obviously. And when she's growing up, she's essentially the same age as Gohan when he beats Cell, right? So she's growing up with this father figure who is, claiming he beat the strongest man or the strongest monster in the world. He saved the world, sort of thing. She's in awe of him. She starts to train because she wants to be exactly like him. She wants to be able to defend herself. She looks up to him as, her mentor, as well as her father. And then, as she's growing older, she wants to become even stronger than him. But then, lo and behold, she meets Gohan when she goes to high school, which I still think that arc's kind of weird, but lo and behold, they meet each other. She does come to find out at the tournament that Hercule Mark is actually not the one that beat Cell. It was Gohan himself. Now, I'm going to jump forward to when she's actually fighting Spopovich. Now, the scene with them two, honest to God, this was my favorite ever because we really see how, headstrong and just driven Vidal really is to be better than her father, to be better than her other peers, especially, the other guys that were training with her father and in the other tournaments and gyms as well. And especially when the scene comes up with Spopovich, she is literally getting the shit beaten out of her, to the point where she's almost dying. And, Gohan's yelling at her, "Stop, Vidal, stop, tap out. And she's like, no, I can do it. And then finally, it's just one blow and she's knocked out, sort of thing. So, I mean, I really love Vidal. Like I said, after the whole, Spopovich thing, he brings her back to the hospital room, gives her a senzu bean. She's alive. She thanks him, tells him, "You better beat Spopovich for me." He gives her kind of the cheesy thumbs up. And then essentially, the arc keeps going on. Boo shows up. Everybody gets killed. And then just to wrap everything up, she does end up actually falling in love with Gohan. And I think it's because of the fact that she sees Gohan as, at this point, like I said, she knows that her father is not the one that beat Cell. So she's kind of like, okay, my father's a joke. Gohan is so incredibly strong. He protected me. I really want to be exactly like him, or, train to be like him. But then she kind of thinks, well, I want to be with Gohan. He's the man of my I think he's the man of my dreams. I want to be with him. And then we get to, I forget what number it is, but anyways, we get to the end of Z, and, she all of a sudden, she has Pan, and it's like, so clearly her and Gohan got married. So I just really love the fact that she trained so hard to be better than her father, which essentially she was, because Hercule is like the weakest of them all. She didn't give up against Popovich, and then, she still was training with Gohan for a little. As far as I know, they were still training a little bit, and then she just kind of gave up on it a little bit when she had Pan, and just kind of, she chose the path of being a mother and a wife, which, as we see in Super, it suits her very well, because she's super cute, and she, it's kind of a touchy subject of her bringing Pan to the tournament, like with Goku and Beerus and Whis, but I mean, what's she gonna do? Leave her at home? So I like her as a mother. I liked her as a fighter, but I think she was essentially, I think she was better at taking the path of being a mother for sure.
Oh yeah, and I think one thing you have to really, just mentioning Super, you mentioned Super there. One of the things that we saw very early on in Super, when the episode when Chi-Chi and Bulma were discussing about Pan, that scene put a lot of in perspective for when it comes to how happy Vidal is and everything. I mean, a lot of people talk about Vidal. A lot of people have a problem with Vidal actually giving up on fighting. They say, well, if Vidal was a man, she wouldn't have stopped fighting. If Vidal was a guy, she would have trained with Goku. She would have been just as strong as Ten Shinhan or Krillin and all that. Honestly, if you want to know why Vidal is a mother and why Vidal loves being a mother, and then that's a good ending for her, you just have to watch that scene, because she looks at Pan and goes, I was raised as a fighter, and then I chose my path. And it's for the reason that you talked about. She basically, in that spite with Popovich, even though a lot of people have a problem with that, she just gives up. She doesn't give up. She loses, and then she kind of uses that to accept the fact of something she already knew for her whole life was Hercule, Mark, or whatever. He did not beat Cell. She knew that. She always knew that. And meeting Gohan and seeing that type of strength and how those people actually take care of their own and everything, it freed her up from that responsibility of taking up the mantle of savior from her father to actually pursue and become the person that she wanted to be, which is the wife and mother figure. And honestly, to me, it's a real big draw. It's a really big, throw up in the air. I don't know, of those two characters, I wouldn't know who to say who had the happier ending. I think Krillin, just because Krillin definitely has been in the series a far longer than Vidal has. We've seen Krillin go through a whole lot of struggles, especially with, the guy never gives up, and it obviously shows up at its tipping point or its peak when Gohan just goes to Master Roshi's house, and he's just literally the only moment I remember in the entire series, he breaks the fourth wall to tell everyone, look, Krillin got the girl that he wanted. Krillin got the girl. And this is a big moment because Krillin, out of anyone else in the series, deserves the girl. and it keeps going, whether you want to count GT or not, and that beautiful when he dies and 18 just loses it. And or in GT when Goku goes to the island and you have both Roshi and Krillin as old men kind of sitting on the island and reminiscing about days past. I mean, it's just, to me, Krillin definitely deserves the ending that he gotten, but just because he's been such a staple in this series for the longest amount of time, his ending is far more meaningful.
Well, yeah, because especially like you said, right? He was shit on the whole entire series.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody thought he wouldn't amount to anything, he wouldn't get the girl, and it was well, guess what? He got everything he wanted, so.
Exactly. And I guess you can argue that almost everyone in this series got everything they wanted, but our own personal emotions that went into all these things, I think, for me, it's definitely a very close race between Vidal and Krillin. I honestly think those two because of just exactly what we've talked about here. But anyway, guys, I'm going to link Amber's channel in the description below. Y'all should really go check her out. She does weekly live reactions to the Dragon Ball Super series, and if you haven't seen those, they're really fun. You can just turn them on even later down the line when you start watching the sub version, and basically just sit around and watch Dragon Ball Super with Amber. That's pretty cool. She also does a lot of stuff. She does videos with Danny and all them. They talk about relationships in Dragon Ball Z and all the Dragon Ball stuff. She does Q&As and everything. Definitely just give her channel a look. Subscribe to her if you haven't already. And thank you, Amber. Thank you so much for being on my channel. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. I'm a little sick, like I said, but I plowed through it, so hopefully you guys are okay with it.
We're appreciative. We're appreciative. Anyway, guys, please, if you like this content, if you want to see more, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, not only to me, but to Amber as well. And we'll probably be back in another video. Like we said, we got a really special one planned for y'all sometime in the next couple of weeks. But anyway, everyone have a really nice day. Bye.